Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here because we're kicking off an absolutely fascinating new unit today. We're going to explore the very foundation of how life on Earth sustains itself with our photosynthesis unit, beginning with Lecture 1, Introduction to Photosynthesis and Energy. Let's get started.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. The need for energy. 2. Autotrophs and heterotrophs. 3. ATP, cellular energy currency. 4. Understanding photosynthesis. And 5. The 2 major stages.
Okay, let's dive into this first section, the need for energy.
So, why do living things need energy in the first place? Well, every single living organism requires it to survive. But what exactly are we using it for at the microscopic level? Energy is needed for growth and development, repairing damaged cells, reproduction, maintaining homeostasis, active transport, and just carrying out general cellular processes. The absolute key idea you need to take away here is that without a constant supply of energy, cells cannot survive. It's literally a matter of cellular life and death. If the energy stops, the cell stops.
So, where does all this life-saving energy actually come from? Almost all life on Earth depends on energy from the sun. Energy follows this really clear, linear flow. It starts with the sun, then plants capture that sunlight and convert it into chemical energy. Animals and other organisms obtain this stored energy by eating plants or by eating other organisms that ate the plants. Finally, that energy flows to decomposers. It's a direct, linear flow connecting the sun to virtually every living thing.
Moving right along, let's look at Section 2, Autotrophs and Heterotrophs. We're going to categorize organisms based on how they get this energy. First up, we have autotrophs. By definition, autotrophs are organisms that make their own food, using energy from sunlight or chemicals. Now, they're also called producers, and I really want you to focus on that term. It's vital because they literally produce the food that supports nearly all ecosystems. Some great examples of autotrophs are plants, algae, and some bacteria. Let's move to and see how this builds into our next group, heterotrophs. These are organisms that cannot make their own food. Because they can't make it, they must obtain energy by consuming other organisms. And because of this, they're also called consumers. Examples here include animals, fungi, most bacteria, and protists. You and I, we fall right into this category. And this brilliantly illustrates the relationship between the two when we compare them side by side. While autotrophs make their own food using sunlight or chemicals and act as producers, heterotrophs act as consumers and must obtain energy from that food. The key idea to remember is that nearly every food chain begins with an autotroph. Without those producers, consumers would have absolutely no source of energy.
All right, let's shift gears and zoom in on the cellular level. Section 3, ATP, our cellular energy currency.
Here's a really fascinating fact. Cells cannot use the energy in food directly. When you eat, your cells can't just instantly use that food as is. Instead, that energy has to be stored in a very specific molecule called ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate. You can think of ATP as the cell's energy currency. It provides the energy for nearly all cellular activities, like active transport and muscle contraction.
To understand how it actually works, we have to look at the structure of ATP. It consists of 3 specific components: adenine, a ribose sugar, and 3 phosphate groups. Now, the magic really happens in the bonds between those phosphate groups. That is exactly where the energy is stored. The crucial mechanism here is that energy is released for the cell to use precisely when that 3rd phosphate is removed.
This brings us to a continuous biochemical cycle that's happening inside your cells right now. Let's walk through it step by step. Step 1, ATP releases energy. When it does, it loses that 3rd phosphate, transforming from ATP into ADP, plus a free phosphate, plus the released energy. Step 2, energy is added. That ADP combines with a phosphate and energy to become ATP once again. Cells continuously recycle ATP and ADP by constantly removing and adding this phosphate group.
This recycling process is exactly what connects our 2 massive biological concepts, photosynthesis and cellular respiration. The contrast is clear. Photosynthesis stores energy in glucose, while cellular respiration releases energy from glucose to produce ATP. Remember this core distinction. Photosynthesis stores the energy, while cellular respiration releases it.
Now let's zoom in on the actual process that creates this stored energy. Section 4, Understanding Photosynthesis. Let's start with a clear textbook definition. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants, algae, and some bacteria convert light energy into chemical energy stored in glucose. And, location is everything in biology. This entire process occurs specifically inside the chloroplasts of plant cells.
So why is this so important? Well, the outputs of photosynthesis are just staggering. It produces glucose for food, releases oxygen into the atmosphere, removes carbon dioxide from the air, and supplies energy for nearly every ecosystem. To put it bluntly, without this process, most life on Earth simply would not exist.
Because this is a chemical process, we can represent it with a balanced chemical equation. Here it is exactly as it happens. 6 CO2 plus 6 H2O plus light energy yields C6H12O6 plus 6 O2. Or in other words, 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 6 molecules of water plus light energy yields 1 molecule of glucose plus 6 molecules of oxygen.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it breaks down that exact formula into what goes in and what comes out. Our reactants, the things used during photosynthesis, are carbon dioxide, water, and light energy. Our products, the things produced by photosynthesis, are glucose and oxygen.
As we mentioned briefly before, this takes place inside structures called chloroplasts. But what makes chloroplasts so special? Well, they contain chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is a green pigment, and its specific job is to absorb the sunlight that acts as the reactant we just saw. The chloroplast is the ultimate site of photosynthesis in plant cells.
Let's move into our final instructional section for today. Section 5, the 2 major stages.
Photosynthesis isn't just one single event. It actually occurs in 2 connected stages. Stage 1 is the light-dependent reactions. This stage captures sunlight and produces ATP and a molecule called NADPH. Stage 2 is the Calvin cycle. The Calvin cycle uses the ATP and NADPH produced in the first stage to produce glucose. Both stages have to work together to convert light energy into chemical energy.
If we trace the linear path of energy through these 2 stages, it makes perfect sense. Sunlight enters and powers the light-dependent reactions. Those reactions output ATP and NADPH, which immediately feed into the Calvin cycle. The Calvin cycle then outputs the final product, glucose. Stage 1 captures the energy, and Stage 2 uses that captured energy to build the glucose.
So the crucial point is how this all ties back to the big picture. Here is how it flows. Sunlight provides energy. Plants capture that light energy. It's converted into chemical energy. Glucose is produced. And finally, that glucose is used during cellular respiration to produce the ATP that powers the cells. Once again, photosynthesis stores the energy, and cellular respiration releases that stored energy. To wrap up today's explainer, let's quickly recap our core takeaways. All organisms require energy. Photosynthesis converts light energy into chemical energy using CO2 and H2O to produce glucose and oxygen in 2 stages, the light-dependent reactions and the Calvin cycle. Our next lesson will dive deeper into leaf anatomy, chloroplasts, and pigments. But before we go, I want to leave you with a thought to ponder. Since we learned that most life wouldn't exist without this process, what would happen to the energy in our own cells if the chloroplasts of the world suddenly stopped functioning today? Think about that, and I'll see you in the next explainer.